Previously in Docker, when designing apps, you could use viewports to tweak the look and feel of your app for different devices. However, quickly people found the limits of this implementation and they wanted to achieve things that previously just weren't possible. So, as a result of this, we have reworked the feature and added various improvements to how viewports work. So I'm going to walk through some of those today. First is, you can see for any existing applications, because of our change to viewports, you might see this bar at the top when moving to version 8. It reads, for this app to perform as expected in different viewports, you need to run a migration. So I've just got quite a simple app here, so I can click on migrate, and it'll open up this little box, run migration, and it will then say, for everything in this application, here are all the changes that it has made. And ours has moved forward with no problems. If you do run into any problems on this screen, please do let us know. However, in our experience, most apps have transitioned smoothly. Once you're happy, you can click on close, and you can now resume using your app as you would before. But before we dive into the app designer, I wanted to show you a few new settings on the app overview level that we can now change. Heading over to our theme tab, we can go down to viewport breakpoints. And here we will see some new options. We'll have pixel widths that we can then prescribe for each of the different viewports. And we'll have viewport modes. You can see we have extra small all the way through to extra large, and I can now define my specific pixel widths for each of these different viewports. So mobile can be whatever I'd like it to be, and same all the way up through widescreen. Viewport modes, you have two different options. One is snap to layout, which acts as it did before, which is going to limit the width of your application to the width of one of these viewports. So even if your device was 800 pixels wide, it would only allow the app to be 768 pixels wide, because that is the closest matching viewport. Only when it reaches the next boundary would it jump up to the laptop viewport in this instance. However, what if you're in one of these spaces in between, and like I said, your device might be 800 pixels wide, which is wider than our closest prescribed viewport here? Well, that's where fluid layout comes into play. So we can select this, and what this will do is it will allow the apps to go all the way to the same width as the device, and the changes that are applied to the components on the screen will be the same as the closest viewport. So in this instance, you would have a device that's 850 pixels wide. It would be using the tablet viewport changes, however, your app would still be full screen, so it would look the best for various users. Hopping into our app designer, we can see there's a few new options. So looking along the top of the screen, you can see we've now got this handy toolbar, which as I move around will track with my mouse and with the canvas in the middle. And I can use this to quickly jump between my various viewports, and hovering over each of them tells me the exact pixel width that I've configured in the settings. And if you preferred the previous implementation, then for now, this option is still in the top right hand corner to allow you to switch over here. But it should be much more intuitive for users to use. You can also drag the width between each of these viewports and see which viewport it would use at any width. If we add in some components, we can see what this would look like in each of our different viewports. Now at the moment, I don't have any specific changes per different viewport. So let's add some. I'm going to say that the default for this is going to be a width of 100 pixels, or maybe that's a little bit too small. Let's go with 500 pixels. Lovely. So let's click on mobile and let's make our change. So on desktop, I'm going to set it to row so that I can make the most of my horizontal space. However, on mobile, I want to make a mobile specific change. So let's say we want to enable responsive overrides to say that this component will have a mobile specific view. Click on yes. It's now orange to say that the changes I make from now on are only going to be specific to mobile, and I can change this to column. And maybe I'll make this a little bit smaller. Maybe I will have this then be dynamic. And if I go back to desktop, you can see that these changes apply. However, the image component change that I just made, we can see is happening on both because I didn't enable that specific override. So I have a specific override for desktop, which will then be used for laptop and tablet because I've not told them to do anything differently. However, my image component, which previously had a width of 500 pixels, now has been changed in mobile, but that change is the same as in desktop because, as you can see, there's no specific override enabled on this component, and therefore it will happen to all versions of this component in all viewports. What you can also do is if we will go to tablet, for example, and we can see that changes I make to this flex component will only happen on the tablet view, is we could do something along the lines of this. We could set this one to, I don't know, have more space in between. We can hop over to mobile, still preserving our changes. And you can now see if I click on the three dots, I can either reset the mobile overrides, or I can copy my changes from tablet to mobile in a singular click. And I can undo those as well. Or if I want to reset my mobile override so it goes back to desktop, I can do that too. And if I want to go back to desktop, I can disable the responsive overrides. And now it's using our desktop version again. Meaning if we've changed our desktop version, we've also changed our mobile version. So you should now have much more granular control over viewports in your apps.